Welcome back to the RGR Craft podcast, where we talk about craft beer brewing, home brew, the equipment, the process, and everything in between. I'm Ryan Tracy, your host, and I welcome you back to the show. This is going to be an audio podcast because it's been a little bit, and I like doing this part too. We have a lot of topics to cover and a lot of things in the works. Want to thank Spike Brewing for their interaction lately. Hopefully we'll have some more news for you guys coming on that pretty soon. If you missed last week, Mike Munhall was with me. We went through the top 5 tips for new brewers. Some of you out there, I'm sure, are. And for those that aren't, we're going to talk about some more advanced things here today. Some things that I have in the works, some things that we're going to walk through how to get done, as well as checking in on where we are in the brewing world right now. There is a lot going on and a lot of change in this industry right now. But I am focused this week on how I'm going about making my beer better at home and how it can help you. We're going to start by the fact that I just went through the process and have shipped it off to get my water actually tested. There is a process. I'll put a link down below to Ward Laboratories out there in Kearney, Nebraska, that is doing the analysis for me. It is a fairly simple process, and I will have a video coming on how to walk you through that, and just how simplified it is. I think will make some people laugh and wonder why they haven't done it yet, because as we talk about the evolution of brewing from where you begin, when you first learn and get into the hobby, for where you really want to start competing and you really want to take it to the next level, a couple of things stand out. First is fermentation temperature control. We've talked some about that. You've seen back my fermentation chamber on one of the Spike Conical videos. If you can't find that, I'll put that up in the corner or down in the show notes so that you can get to that. And it definitely makes a high impact on the quality of the beer that you make by being able to control that fermentation chamber and keep the fermenting liquid at a consistent temperature. It's not so much where it is, but that it's consistent, and so that you allow it to do what it naturally wants to do in fermenting. The other one that goes with it is having the water chemistry right to allow that all to happen as well. Now, water chemistry comes in a number of different places, including in the mash, which is, I think, an under-heralded part about getting as much flavor into your beer design as possible in being able to mash it correctly, whether it's a single infusion or a multi-step mash or a decoction, whatever you're trying to do, having your water balanced, or at least in a profile for what your target is, becomes very important. And the first step in getting to that is being able to know what's in your water to begin with. I will be sharing, when I get the results back, everything on my personal water. I am up in the mountains at a high elevation, so mine will be fairly unique. It's not municipal. It's off of a well, and that has its own tricks and trades, but certain things about certain areas play true in America as well. The Irish stout category is dry for a reason. It is brewed off of the water profile there in Dublin. It does make a difference. Several things do that around the world, wherever the balance of ions gets to, that makes a place unique. And having the idea of what's in your water to begin with allows you to then take the next step and move towards balancing the water towards what your goal is, or what the flavor profile is of your target beer. It makes making the beer that you're aiming for that much more achievable, and is an advanced technique. Honestly, I freely admit that, but something I think in the evolution of everyone's trip down being a brewer, I think that takes part at some point and can take you from the level you've been at 2 years to a competition quality product that you can be proud of and actually do well with. That's my goal overall, and that's what I'm going to be documenting as we go through the process. There is a lot to it. There are very specific ions and a lot of process going through how to balance it. And there are some specific tools that I'll be sharing as we go along. One is Brewing Water. You can do some checking on that if you like, and I will have more down the line. And it is my intention to use Brewing Water, and I'll go through that. In fact, we'll just start from scratch. I'll be a first-time user, the same as all of you, at least some of you, and we'll just record that as a session. We'll have that up here in another couple of weeks when I get the sample back, the report back on that sample. Now, the reason that I really am looking at taking that to the next step is, like I said, with the temperature control and fermentation, Now it's on to the water to try and take everything up a notch. And that starts with the recipe that I've been brewing on and off for the last several years. I'm on batch 7 now. And it's one of my favorite styles. You guys have heard me talk about the Belgian triples, and they should be a dry beer. They should be a flavorful beer, but not one that lingers on your palate. And I have a unique setup. One thing that I do know, and one thing that I do watch very closely is the pH of my mash and my end product, because I do have pretty basic water. I'll be really interested to see what the sample comes back at, because on my handheld monitor, I do get in the upper sevens, somewhere between 7.5 to 7.6, 7.7 on occasion. And I'm sure it fluctuates. I live on a well, so I have actually a very deep well that runs into the mountainside, which gives me great, clean tasting water, but there's apt to be more minerals in it, and it certainly is a harder water source. So what I've had to do over the years is a constant trial and error of how much acid to add to any given beer. And when you get to the point where you're brewing, especially any kind of pale lager, or in my case, the pale to mid-level Belgians, it really can stand out. It can really affect the end product based on the pH. And I'm sure what else is in my water will have a pretty standing effect as well. I'm really excited to see that. I know Ward is looking on that. And Tim Ward is the guy over there that runs what I think is the brewing program. I haven't spoken to him yet. I have a call in. We'll see if we can get that done, because it's a very specific panel of things that you're looking for as a brewer. And we're going to plug that in and go from there, because the trial and error has grown old over the years. I've toyed back and forth. I use lactic acid in some brews, especially towards this lower end. I like that for its punch. Dropping a little lactic acid actually has more of an effect than trying to do what I do the rest of the time with the paler beers, is adding some acidulated malt. And that actually comes in really handy when you're trying to keep things just more straightforward. By adding some acid malt to the grain bill and allowing it to do its job, it has the ability to lower the pH for you as well. Now, obviously, the darker the beer that you get, the more pH dropping power you have just in the grain bill itself, because you're going with those darker grains that have been kilned higher, longer, and have produced the reactions that help you bring down the pH in that mash in particular. Without it, that's where things get a little bit hairy. And I found the inconsistency for me is the very slight differences that I make in the mash in order to produce the triples in particular. Even if I don't change the other grain profile or the hop profile, I still don't have the consistency that I'm looking for. Now, with a couple of batches under my belt, with the fermentation control locked down, after having gotten that squared away, and we'll talk about Inkbird and Johnson, some of the controllers you can use, that if you build a platform in any old fridge, you can make it work. And that's a whole other story to a whole other show. But now that I've had the fermentation chamber where it's solid and I can take that part out of the equation, now I'm getting back to how do I get my base flavor for my beers? And there's certain characteristics. My IPAs always come out very well done and tasty. And I don't have to do a whole lot of modification for those. That is not the case all the way around, depending if you're looking for maltier flavors or if you're looking for more of a balanced beer like I am in the triples. So we want it dry, but I do want to have that malt character in there. So what I've been doing is either playing with the balance of acidulated malt in the mash and the lactic acid. And in the triples, I've been using both in order to not overflow or take the grain, that kind of granularity you get from acidulated malt when you use it too much. I'm trying to avoid that. So I'm doing a lot of pilot batches in the Pico Brew. I'll have an update on Pico Brew coming here next week. And we might even start breaking these podcasts down into shorter increments. We might even stop here pretty easily today and keep it 10, 12 minutes, just so it's nice and simple for you guys to hear when you're listening on YouTube. And eventually this will be ported over to an iTunes podcast and Spotify and everywhere else. So that's the process that I'm going through in trying to get my mashing to the point where the pH is correct and I can lock it down and keep it stable so that then I can make the final alterations to what I'm looking to do is compete with a triple recipe. So I'll share that recipe when we come up and I get some of this balanced out after we go over the water profile when that comes back in. So keep that tuned. That's going to be a fun piece as it comes back. And we have lots of little things coming. Mike's got brew day showing up, then he's going to go over the grain father for you. So whether you're an experienced brewer that's looking to automate or you're a new brewer that's looking to get into this hobby with a piece of equipment that you can run manually or run remotely, I think that's going to be an interesting one. I've got pieces for the spike conicals. That will probably be the next episode because a couple of tweaks, the spike's really doing well, and I'm finding little things that I like more and more about it. I'm going to go over that. And Spike's been great with me so far. We're going to keep that relationship going. And hopefully I'll have something for you later in the fall as some of their new products get ready to come out. So keep an ear out for that. We'll leave it there for today. Make sure you get subbed and click that like button. And we're going to have way more on the brewing and craft and eventually on craft spirits as well. So keep an eye out for that. I appreciate all your time. Thanks for checking this channel out. Thanks for the like and the sub and the bell notification. And we'll talk to you next time. Cheers.